I feel pleasure in my pussy when I, like, touch his sacrum, and I was like, "Whoa."
Yeah.
Like, can I talk about for a second, like, a reclamation? Like, I
Mm.
like, being able to think that I would feel pleasure in my own body, I'd feel pleasure in my pussy again, I'd feel pleasure in my pussy while connected with another, and then to think I would feel pleasure in my pussy while touching someone else's body in not even the most sexual way is insane, and that's just as far as I've gotten, and but again, that's from a mind of someone who is quite skeptical of it to start.
If you continue to open to the access to energy, my husband can be breathing in the other room, intentionally taking a breath, and I feel it in my pussy in the other room. He'll just do things in the other room just to drive me crazy. So he knows I'm on a business meeting and I'm starting to, it's like as if I had a yoni egg in, but it's all energetic.
This is Erotic Reclamation.
Space where desire isn't shameful, boundaries are a turn on, and curiosity is welcome wherever it leads. I'm Nicolette.
And I'm Carrie, and we're here to have honest conversations about sex, kink, relationships, aliveness, being in a body, and all the weirdness that entails, and pleasure that heals.
Because these electrifying, liberating, ecstatic, but misunderstood parts of the human experience are too good to hide.
Okay, today we have a topic that I am super jazzed to talk about because mostly I'm excited to mine, Nicolette, your wisdom on the topic because it feels newer to me to put into words. And it's something that I have experienced in my own body, and I haven't known what it is. And I haven't always known how to cultivate it, how to share it with a partner, what to do with it, even though I have studied for years in a tradition that is informed by this. So, what we're talking about today is energetic sex.
Mhm.
Whoo, I feel my arms tingle just with the topic. I'm stoked. And for our framework, there is someone named Jaya, Jaiya, and she has the erotic blueprints. And so she's coined, it's kind of the sexual love languages. So she goes over there's sensual, sexual, kinky, energetic, and then shapeshifter. And some of those are pretty straightforward. You can already have an idea of what they might entail. We're not going to talk about the erotic blueprints. That's her work. Would recommend take a
Go
look at
check it
it.
out.
Yeah, take a look at it, especially if you and your partner have mismatched ones. Nicolette and I talk about what to do with that a lot, but they have an entire website class process for that. But that said, we're going to double click on energetic sex
Mhm.
and our experience of it, our understanding of it. And maybe that'll be something that comes up with it too, because it feels like this amorphous, less tangible sexual expression. So I'd love to open it up with what is energetic sex?
Yeah. So the first thing I'll say is this assumes that you have some understanding of energy. So I'm going to talk a little bit about how I kind of came to this and the experience of energy before I even talk about sex from that perspective. I there would be these moments like I'd be at the grocery store and someone would look at me and I would have a feeling in my body. I might feel gross or like ugh, like someone just as if they just, like, touched me, but or, like, ran their hand down the front of my body or, like, put their hand on my breast, but it was just a look. Or someone might look at me and, like, I light up and I start smiling, and it kinda, like, tickles me. It's as if they tickled me,
Mm,
and so I'd have these visceral, physical responses to something that was intangible. And I'm sure there are listeners that are hearing this that are already like nodding their heads and having memories come back and moments and people who identify as sensitive or energetically sensitive. And I consider you one of that. You wouldn't be talking about the tingles in your arms if you if you weren't.
Mhm,
Um, but I want to slow that down and just point that piece out because relating to energy in that way is the kind of baseline of this conversation. And, everything had we're kind of working under this assumption that everything has energy or is energy. And there's science like a molecule is or an atom is like you
I was gonna say, "You about to make me do science."
do
Okay.
science. Can you do some science?
If not at the tiniest level, but everything is moving and spinning and orbiting and buzzing, and there are even tinier particles and waves. There are sound waves. That's like a big one. Like you don't visibly see, but energy literally travels on sound, travels on invisible like sound waves. I think that's what you were going for. And no,
Yeah, that's exactly it.
great. Science.
Yay,
Yeah,
science.
yeah,
Science is sexy. Okay.
yeah.
But yeah, so it's like I'm not just like talking out of my like I'm actually saying something that, energy. So this like rock that I happen to have next to me it carries a certain kind of texture of like flavor of energy, and in my hand it has weight, it has density, it's strong, it's rough, like there's the physicality, but there's also something that it does for me energetically. When we talk about grounding, that's an energetic action that really, I mean, you can ground by bringing your attention to the bottom of your body, and you can also ground by physically, like, pressing yourself down. But just bringing your attention to the bottom of your body, something changes.
Mhm. Mhm. And if you are a science lover, stick with us a little bit. I was skeptical of energy for a long time, but then I start hearing stories of it and just you're like, "Oh, I've felt that in my body."
Mhm,
And I can't explain that with what I can see. And just like any advances, we just might not have names for these phenomenon, or they may not be able to be observed currently or at the spectrum of sound, light that we experience human senses. And so my invitation is if you are listening and you're like, where's the science? Like, yay, we love that part of you as well. And listen for what does resonate, because that for me was a really good entry point when I started being like, whoa, I'm skeptical of this and I'm still having these body experiences that don't make sense. Nobody is touching me and I'm like feeling rippling or something like jerks my spine
mhm.
and it's not a voluntary motion. So that for me was when I was like, whoa, what is this stuff? And that's also why I'm excited to hear Nicolette
Yeah,
talk about it more.
yeah. Yeah, and then, like, behind me is a plant, and I'm aware of that, I can see it in my screen, I know that there's a plant, but then I also feel the plant behind me. And that is a skill that I have honed, but I also as a kid was somebody who would feel a lot of things. I could I could feel someone in the other room even though I couldn't see them, I couldn't hear them, but I could feel them. So there's something where and this will happen like you're walking down the hallway and you just sense that there's someone there, like a spidey sense. Well, that's energy, feeling the energy. And so I feel the energy of this plant, and it has a particular texture of energy and quality of energy. Well, then there's like the possibility to interact. with something. I can interact with it through my physical senses, touch, smell, taste, seeing it, hearing it, listening or so I can go through the physical senses, but then I can also sense it energetically. And energetic sex is bringing in the sexual action and sexual intimacy through energy. And so you'll hear of penetration, like energetic penetration, and you'll hear of energetic caressing and moving somebody with energy. And those are some of the things that will come in as we talk about energetic sex.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yes, Carrie?
Questions. Questions for those of us in the audience. So you can feel the plant. Can you feel also like the couch and the wall,
Mhm.
or is it something that has biological components?
I can feel all of it.
All of it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
But the biological can be sometimes easier to, like, wrap your brain around. But, yeah, and, if you take a certain sense away, other senses heighten, and the capacity to feel with other senses will increase.
Mm,
So, if you're blindfolded, for example, or, if you're listening to this and you're blind, I mean, you have a much greater understanding of this than I ever will, because I am not. But when blindfolded, other senses heighten. This is why being blindfolded is so
mm,
fun and hot.
mm,
And a great way to bring in like, spice up your sex life, because other senses heighten. Your sense of hearing heightens, your even, like, you might salivate a little bit more, but also the sense of touch. And then there's a feeling sense. There's the energetic sense of being able to sense that person there. One of the ways that you can play with the energetic, just even initially, is to be at a distance from your partner and then come closer and closer and closer. And you can do this with your eyes closed or open. If eyes are closed, just make sure you got nothing in the way that you could trip on. You get closer and closer and closer, and then see, like, when you can feel how close they are.
mm,
And and you can do this just with your hands too, like your hands far away and close together. And, like, even with your own hands, if you have your hands really close together, like, I feel almost a buzzing or a warmth.
mhm,
Yeah, and then as you bring your hands further apart, the sensation shifts, but I still feel that buzzing. It's just different. You're nodding over there and smiling.
yeah, well, because it's like I'm like, "Oh, how do I describe it?" My right leg a lot of times is like a really active with energy, and it just twitched. It's like bringing
Mm,
my awareness to, like, the warmth, and then pulling away that away sticky, gluey, like, vacuum almost feeling is, like, really delightful. Like, I like feeling things disperse and dilate a little. So that's just what and my leg twitched
yeah,
from bringing my attention and focus to my hands.
yep, love that. And I wanna bring something in now so I don't forget, which is attempting to bring language to these things can actually really enhance your sex too. So even if you're not having, quote, "energetic sex," starting to bring language to your experiences in your sexuality, like, "Oh my gosh, your hand's so close to me, and there's this, like, sticky honey feeling, and I feel kind of prickly a little bit, and like, and that makes me giddy, but also there's, like, a tingle that I don't know where the tingle is coming from, and, oh, my toe just, like, twitched a couple times." And bringing that language can bring you into connection with your partner. This was really good for me, actually, with starting to relate with people again after sexual trauma because it was hard for me, like, it would just be like, "Oh, that hurts." Like, I would just have, like, "That hurts," or "That's uncomfortable," or that's scary," or
Mhm.
but when I did start saying, "Oh, that feels prickly," that feels tense, that feels really warm. Oh my gosh, all of a sudden that feels very cold. Like starting to bring language to things that was more energetic language or sensory language more than the typical like ow and yum.
Uh-huh.
It gave me a bridge
Mm,
to have more sensation.
mm,
'Cause ow and yum was sort of all I had access to initially, and then I was like, "Oh, but when there is prickly and there is softness and there is like a feathery sensation, I don't necessarily like it, but that's what I'm feeling."
mhm.
And so then I could have more access when I was starting to, when someone was starting to touch my genitals or parts of my body that were more sensitive after sexual trauma in a consensual context.
Yeah, that makes sense because if you're working with yum or ouch, then there's this like, "Oh, if it's not yum, then it must be ouch."
Mhm.
And it's like, "Whoa, there's increasing the language." I've used this example so often. I think about how, we call snow, snow. We have one word for it, maybe sleet, if you wanna call sleet snow. But then I think it is I don't know if it's indigenous folks have, like, 26 words for snow,
Mm.
and so if you start to name things, you start to experience them more, right? And whereas we maybe are experiencing these 26 different types of snow, not here in Texas, but maybe someone else's. Um, so that's what I really see this doing the same thing. Instead of taking it from, like, "Yum, ouch," or "Meh," it's
Mhm.
like, what are the 3,000 different words that actually are more accurate, and then you can look at and examine, and I think naming things does serve a purpose. That's why we as humans developed language.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it can create connection because yum and ouch, like, if it's not yum, then I was like, "Oh, well, now I can't be in connection."
Mm. Mhm.
But now there's all this space for connection and ways to connect, and energetic sex is so powerful and potent because there is so much space for connection and intimacy that goes beyond, a penis in my vagina or a tongue on my XYZ and, or hand on my throat, and so there's, like, all this nuance and place for connection and play and hotness and turn on and passion
Mhm.
that is way beyond those kinds of intimacy that almost got binary for me. It was like if the penis is not in my vagina, then I am not having sex.
Mhm.
There's either sex, which is that, or not sex, which was not that. And now, like, oh, sex is all of this, encompasses all of this, and of course opens the door for kink and all these other, and that's why the erotic blueprint's so cool because sex gets defined in all these other ways. Orgasm and pleasure can also be accessed in other ways too.
Mm.
So with energetic sex come energetic orgasms.
Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Quick question.
Yeah,
Do you have to be turned on while experiencing these sensations for it to count as energetic sex?
that's a great question. I mean, I think I'm just thinking about kink is doesn't require turn on to
Mhm.
be, you know, set like well, I think it's how you define turn on.
Yep.
'Cause because I do. like the ignition, the turn on, the lighting up, the brightening, the connection, the fire, that however you define it, that I do experience that in all sexual interactions.
Mhm.
It's just not necessarily a a sensation that is generated purely in a specific part of my genitals.
Right, so you're not, like, wet necessarily. That's not what like, it's not a physical, but it can be, but it's more of an aliveness, a turned upness of senses or something like that?
Yeah, and I love that you're bringing this in because after sexual trauma, I didn't have a lot of access to getting wet.
Mhm,
To this day, it's like, I'm like, "Ooh, look, I'm wet." Like, that's so cool, like, because it's not expected anymore. It's not so it's not something I have super easy access to. But, like, did that then mean that I couldn't have access to sex? No. So I love that you're making this distinction because you don't it doesn't mean that, you're erect, you're wet, you're, you know, certain body parts are engorged,
mhm,
like blood has pooled to such and such location, like, it doesn't necessarily mean that to be
mhm,
turned on.
mm, mm, cool. Like, turn on of body, turn on of genitals, turn on of heart, turn on of mind, turn on of soul?
Yeah,
Yeah.
and energy, like, energy turn on, when you feel really awake and you feel vibrant and like,
Mhm,
like, those moments where you're just, like, so alert and awake and vibrant and active, and you didn't even drink coffee that day, like, or you didn't have a super kick-ass workout, but it's just there, that energy, that,
mm,
that's a form of energetic turn on.
mm. And that rings true because if I do a solo practice in the realms of embodiment where energy is usually awoken or involved, or if I do a partnered practice with Jason, I can start out very tired, very depleted from the day and life and burdened, and then afterwards feel just exactly like you said, like I just woke up. I've never been more excited for the day to go on. Like I feel so alive and I'm like, "Oh yeah, that is being in touch with that turn on, that life force." I mean, we say that term
Mhm.
a lot, but life force and erotic and life force to me seem very much
Yes.
the same. That's why I love this business that we have. That's why I love this exploration because it is so powerful to be able to shift your entire state through connection rather than like chemical or
Mhm.
like it's just really powerful. And that's when I started to become more of a believer in this energetic work because I was like, whoa, I am experiencing drastic changes and things that can't just be explained by I ingested coffee, I slept 8 hours,
Mm.
it's 10 a.m. and that's when I'm my brightest. It's like, oh, wow, this is really cool.
Yeah. And then I also wanna say, like, you don't have to be turned on in order to have sex, any sex. Like, it can happen through the connection and through the intimacy.
Mhm,
Um, and I often find that, especially as an energetic, it's actually through engaging with someone else energetically that I start to get more and more turned on, and then my body starts to turn on.
mm,
'Cause my body takes longer than I do, like, energetically or emotionally, heart-wise.
mhm, eh,
Yeah, so energetic sex, you might see, for example, somebody running their hand, like, 4 or 5 inches or even less away from someone's body, like, up and down their body, and the person is, like, thrashing.
Like on Goop.
Yeah.
I only watched a little bit of that series, but on if you wanna see an example of it, Goop had what was their series called? Do you remember? Sex, Love, and Goop, maybe?
It might have been, yeah, and Jaya was on
Jai is on there,
yeah,
and so you can see examples of all of these blueprints.
yeah, yeah. I remember the first time I saw that, I was like, "Oh, maybe I'm not an energetic because I don't thrash when somebody's hand is 5 inches away from my body," but actually, how I still feel this I still feel something.
Mm,
And, "Oh, I'm not that orgasmic," because one of the things that they'll say is, like, your capacity for energetic orgasm is much more than physical, like, you can have many, 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 many more orgasms energetically than, say, physically, and I was like, "Oh, I don't think I'm doing that." But a release, like, an energetic orgasm is essentially a release of energy.
mm,
There's like a buildup and then a release of energy that can show up in a shiver, a quiver, a it can come out with a moan because it comes through your vocal channels. It
mm,
can be like a big shudder or a shake. Animals shake all the time. They shake to regulate their nervous systems and to release energy. They sort of regulate energy. But they do that as a nervous system regulation, and shaking and quivering and vibrating and all of that. Our bodies actually we're animals too. Like we naturally do that too. We've blocked ourselves from that.
mm.
So the more that I opened myself to that just natural quiver or shake or vibration, the more I had access to bigger eruptions of energy.
But you said at one point you thought, "Maybe I'm just not like that."
Mhm.
But if I'm hearing correctly, you said you opened yourself to it more, and maybe you can expound into what that might mean, and then you now do experience maybe larger ripples, vibrations, eruptions. I like that. I
Yeah.
like eruptions. What is an orgasm but an
An eruption.
eruption? Yeah. And then we're all sorry, men, you don't have quite as many forms, but all of us women listening are like, "Oh, yeah, sometimes the volcano bubbles over, sometimes it explodes and sometimes it builds forever, and then just
Yeah.
little what
Whew,
eruption."
orgasm.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that the opening myself to was allowing those little shudders and vibrations and buzzes and shakes throughout the day to happen.
Mm,
Like, I didn't block it anymore. Um, yeah, because it actually happens throughout the day, and now, I'll do, like, I just respond. I let energy move through my body now without blocking it, and that gives me access to that relationally. And you can have that energetic experience, so again, like, something you may see is, like, someone's hand, doing that, but also it can be from a command, or a voice command. It can happen from like, it doesn't have to happen with, like, touching the energy body or the aura, or, it could be from a voice, it can be from a glance or a look. I mean, how many times people get glanced at and have a shudder?
zingers,
Yes.
like, up and down the spine from, like, a look. You're like,
Mhm.
"Whoa."
Yeah. Or a simple physical touch can bring an energetic response. So yeah, there are a lot of pathways in, and the way to, like, I would say, is to stop blocking visceral responses through the body that look like release,
Mm.
like shudders or sighs or, shakes or, yeah,
Sneezes?
vibration. Sneeze, yeah, totally.
Like, we all
Yawns.
like, hold in a sneeze, like,
Mhm.
stop it in its track.
Yeah, yawning moves energy. I it's like this sounds awful, but I yawn a lot during sex because it's not I'm not bored.
Yeah.
It actually, like,
Yeah.
moves energy.
Yeah, I do too. Like, Jason knows he's on the right track. Mine's usually just at the start when I start yawning because he's like, "Cool, she's starting to release some of the stress from the day, some of the
Mm,
tension, and now she's gonna be more present in her physical body."
mhm.
Yawn, yawn, yawn. Also, just like, oh, opens that jaw up. So good.
Yeah.
Mm,
Yeah, and there's another pathway which is used in tantra, which is two people in more of a full-bodied presence with each other, engaging the breath or, sometimes there's breath patterns. Kundalini yoga works with breath in very specific ways. Yoga in general works with breath in specific ways. So there are ways to engage your breath
mm,
that activates energy. There, if you've ever done breath work and you just start breathing and then your body starts to heat up and all you've been doing is breathing, as-
yeah.
that's energy.
Mhm,
Or tai chi, qigong, there's a lot of movement practices that it's like, oh, all I've been doing is waving my arms in the air slowly and all of a sudden I'm like pouring sweat.
mm,
That energy. So in tantra, if you're engaged with someone, whether it's with breath or a gaze or some combination, and engaging the energy, you can then play with that energy intentionally, like circulating it from like up one person's spine, out through their head and down through the other person's spine and then up through the person, this is where we bring in the word yoni or perineum, through
let's see. That's what a
yeah,
yoni is, if you're wondering.
yeah,
Yep.
yoni is pussy, yeah. So, so like you can circulate it, you can penetrate it just like penetrating with physical, whether it's an appendage attached to your body or a silicone one or any other kind of version or yeah, anyway. So penetration can happen energetically. People might even imagine like a energetic phallus that they're sending in through the root of the other person, and gender doesn't matter. So there you can penetrate with energy. There are a lot of ways to play with it. And so I'm gonna say something controversial.
Woo! We love it.
Yeah, so I've a lot of people who know me know that I've spent quite a bit of time in spaces which work with what's called sexual polarity. And sexual polarity is working with specifically the polarities of the energetic, so the masculine and the feminine. And there are ways to engage sexual energy through those particular dynamics. In those spaces, they're set up often in such a way that you're working with practice, as it were. And and oftentimes they'll talk about like you can have a partner at home and still be in this container and you're practicing in service of your partner at home. Well, for me, I could never do that. Like something felt off in me in the spaces being able to do that. And it was, later really recognizing my blueprint and understanding it, it was because for me, when I was in that space, working, and often we were working with penetration, energetic penetration, and things like that, I was having sex.
Mm,
I was not practicing. I was
mm,
actually having sex.
mm,
The turn on the things that, like, in this moment, I am actually having sex. And it didn't feel right for me to be in a space doing that without owning that. Even I could get consent from my partner, but some partners don't know what is actually happening in that space. So for me, I had to bring my partner in to experience it.
mm,
And oftentimes I'd be in the container and only get as far as eye gazing before I would raise my hand to pause the practice and not go any further, because going any further to me, I was having sex and it didn't feel right with my partner at home or with the level of sex that I was open to engaging at the time.
mm.
And again, different people experience it differently or have a different relationship to energetic sex and what that is, but that is my experience of it.
Mm,
This is the same thing for me with certain levels of physical touch, even like sensual touch, because it starts to feel like sex for me and not just a
mm.
platonic touch. So, being really clear about that is important for me and my dynamic so that I'm clear in that in my relationship.
Yeah. It's just so interesting to think about because to like further build out a little context for what Nicolette was just talking about, these are practices that are fully clothed. There's no touching of breast genitals. Ah, just created a new word. There's no touching of breasts, ass, or genitals. There's no making out. So if we're using the blueprints, there's no
Yeah.
physical sexual component. There can be touch. There is touch that happens depending on practice. So there could be a sensual component. There can be command practices. So there is a kinky component. And then the energetic, which is, I would argue, a subtext always present. And then some of the practices very specifically focus on energetic penetration or breath penetration of maybe the heart or the yoni or just even connecting in breath that way. And so it's interesting because if we are going to call all of these blueprints sex, and then you're in a room doing these things, like I understand how you were like, oh, this is sex for me, especially if that is a primary way that you relate to sex in your sexual essence.
Yeah. Yeah, and, I personally identify myself as energetic and kinky in my blueprints, and so in that container, I was very much having sex, like, as soon as someone was commanding me, and I was, you know however, what was so powerful is that I met my husband in one of those containers, and when I practiced with him, I actually did open my body to him because I was a yes to that. I
Mm,
did wanna have that kind of engagement with him, and my blueprint was very met in that engagement, and I knew that I had a strong connection with him.
mm,
But I was very selective about who I practiced with, if I practiced with them, what I did in that practice because of those boundaries
mm,
that I held for myself up
mm.
until then. Yeah.
Yeah.
And since then I really haven't I haven't stepped into those containers and intentionally have a boundary against sexual polarity because of as I continue to grow more and more sensitive energetically, I'm I'm clear that I don't want to engage in that way with anyone except for my husband.
Yeah. And my experience was I'm so glad that I experienced polarity because it woke up or brought my awareness to. Well, first, just embodiment brought my awareness to more sensation, including energetic sensation in myself. And it felt like this little secret world where I was like, I can't really tell anybody about this, but like I can close my eyes and feel like rippling, floating hills, mountains, whatever.
Mm,
And then doing polarity helped me start to realize and recognize you could do that in partnership.
mm, mm,
And that was wild to experience while single, just everything that comes up with it, choosing to step into emotional intimacy with someone, energetic intimacy, and everything that comes up. And now I only practice polarity with my partner as well. And it's so cool because I loved hearing what you said about the first time you and your partner practice. And it feels drastically different when I practice with Jason
mhm,
than in the past when I've just practiced with whomever. And I do think it was a beautiful skill to practice with whomever. And I learned a lot about myself, but it really took it to a different level when it was with this person I deeply love and care about. And that honestly is a layer that I did not experience until I
Mhm.
was doing it with Jason. Because prior to that, there was just like a little bit of a like, for me, it was practice. I'm kind of like putting on my backpack and I'm going to energy school and I don't really know you, but it's cool. You got your backpack too. Let's learn.
Mhm.
And then when I did it with Jason, it's like I lose myself
Mhm.
in the best way.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm. Mm. Nicolette leads an awesome polarity practice too, just adding to those listening. We don't base our work. There are tons of beautiful teachers out there who teach polarity. We know a lot of them. So if
Yeah.
you are listening and you are interested, we actually know so many beautiful teachers of this and it can be such a gift. So if you are interested, let us know. We would love to point you towards containers that do solely polarity. And we bring pieces of this in and do some of this in our Temple of Yes retreats and our Velvet Chamber virtual retreats. And
Mhm.
Nicolette leads a really beautiful polarity and energetic practice.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mhm.
And I think, what's very cool in the Temple of Yes is that we don't take it for granted. It is the same setup of discussing desires and boundaries and consent and all of that gets discussed before we go into an energetic sexual exchange, as we call it, or a polarity exchange. And also, these containers that we're talking about have the same thing. They talk about boundaries, they talk about consent. So those those dialogues are still had as if you were having physical sex, and we treat it just with equally as
Mm,
any other form of sex in the space. And yeah, and I think that's an important piece to bring in. Like, if you are engaging in this, having those same consent conversations are important.
mhm,
I want to talk about boundaries because, energetically, like, when you're having s- physical sex with someone, clothes on or clothes off can be a boundary.
mhm.
Or, our we have words and you can still use words energetically, but your clothes, there's no energetic clothes.
Don't buzz my left side of my T4 vertebrae. What?
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, and it took me a long time because I had my energetic boundaries were wide open for a long time, and I will talk more. I'll go a little more specific. Don't worry. So anyone who's like, "What are you talking about?" Like, trust me, I'll get there. So it was as if I was walking around the world naked,
Mm, mm,
energetically.
yeah.
And then I'd be like, why do I feel so exhausted at the end of the day? Why do I feel so bombarded by everybody? Why did that person's look make me like feel disgusting and like I need to take a shower now? And I was like the victim of it all. Like, it was like I was at the effect of it because I was so just wide open energetically.
Mm,
So I started to learn how to have energetic boundaries and cultivate energetic sovereignty is
mm,
the term, through my teacher Teo Alfaro, which is more in a shamanic study, but I was able to directly start to apply this to sex.
mm,
And so what I learned is we all have like an energetic field, a bubble. You often people will talk about aura, bubble, energetic field, luminous egg. I mean, there's a lot of different terms for it. My I often use the metaphor of a fishnet stocking. So like if the edge of your energetic field is like a fishnet stocking, my fishnet stocking was like the pulled fishnet stocking, so the holes were really big.
mm, mm,
And and I and that was just I was just wide open energetically, and I didn't know it.
mhm.
But once I started to have awareness of my own energetic field, I started to learn like, oh, I've got my holes wide open. What happens if I close them? And I learned like a fishnet stocking, and you pull it, you can also contract it. And it could get even as tight as like saran wrap around you. And this is something, if you do have an understanding of energy, you can play with this. Like I even will sometimes use my hands to practice this where I'll like stretch my hands apart and feel the holes getting bigger, and then I'll pull my hands in and then feel the holes getting smaller.
Mm.
I'd also feel my field like really, really, really big and like pull it in tighter to me. And you can even use your hands to like physically pull your field in tighter to you.
And now when we're doing this,
Yeah.
is it if you're newer to it, or another way to think of it, is it like attention and awareness,
Mhm.
right? Is that would that be like you're kind of pulling instead of if you walk in the room and you're someone who knows everybody's attitude, mood, and what they did before they got to that room, you're at your fishnets wide, right? And you're just
Mhm.
like feeling like, oh God, that one's having a bad day. They seem fine. And if you kind of bring your awareness, like literally feel like you bring your awareness in, is that like a similar
Yeah, that could be a good
experience?
that's a good comparison. I mean, this is actually like my I'm I'm speaking with my experience, but also with some authority, that we all have these energetic fields and they're like our body.
Mhm,
So it actually is an extension of your body. And if you see it as that, if I walk in without clothes on and with my hands wide open, it's the difference between that and like maybe putting on a robe and drawing my hands in. But it's also different than, you know, wrapping my arms around me really tight and like,
mm,
having really tight jaw and like,
mhm,
keeping my eyes closed and blocking myself.
mm, mm,
And
mm,
people will talk about like their heart being open or closed. I think that can sometimes be easier to access. Like when your heart you have more access to your feelings and your emotions and feeling someone else's feelings or sensing or having access to empathy versus being guarded or blocked, not feeling your emotions.
mm.
It's like that, but energetically.
I think you've said something before about like a sacred imagination.
Mhm,
Sometimes the word sacred gets thrown around, but instead of just like we're not talking fantasy or anything like that, but there is some amount of trust or leap of faith or belief in magic or
mhm.
um inability to explain fully, right? Because it's like, okay, it's not quite awareness or attention. That is slightly different. That might
Yes.
help because you're like, if I bring my focus, then maybe I'll actually be able to sense this, or I might have to use a little bit of an imagination, a sacred imagination, or like a, okay,
Mhm.
this is what I think this feels like. And
Yes.
that was often my first steps into some of this, which is why I'm asking some of these questions too, because I'm like, "Oh, I'm the person who is like, oh, no, I'm not. That's not me." But then, like, Jason and I'll talk about this real quick. We did an experiment because this has been really cool to bring to him in partnership.
Mhm.
And we did the hand over the body thing, but I didn't know he was doing that. And my eyes were closed and I was just laying on his lap. And he I knew when he started doing it that that's what we were doing, but I didn't know where his hand was going, and my body was lifting as he took his hand, and he said, "Holy shit." He's like, "You really feel that, don't you?" And I was like, "Did I? I don't know, my eyes were closed. Did it match?" And he was like, "Exactly,
Mhm.
exactly." And so it is really cool, and I'm gonna just keep speaking to how you can still experience this and be skeptical of it.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
doesn't need your belief to exist. And that for me is what I get so jazzed about, is
Mhm.
like this is an unexplainable but experienceable and yet kind of explainable sexual energetic realm, and I find that to be so cool.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that example. I'm so excited for the 2 of you. That's awesome. That's so awesome. I didn't know about that. That's so
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah. And
Um,
we've been starting to have where the energetic is merging more with the physical,
yeah.
and that is so cool, like a touch on the sacrum of, like, his sacrum, and I feel pleasure in my yoni. I don't actually
Mhm.
call mine a yoni. I just thought I'd say it. I feel pleasure in my pussy when I, like, touch his sacrum, and I was like, "Whoa."
Yeah.
Like, can I talk about for a second, like, you wanna say, like, a reclamation? Like, I
Mm.
like, being able to think that I would feel pleasure in my own body, I'd feel pleasure in my pussy again, I'd feel pleasure in my pussy while connected with another, and then to think I would feel pleasure in my pussy while touching someone else's body in not even the most sexual way is insane.
Mm.
So that's, the aspirational seed, and that's just as far as I've gotten, and but again, that's from a mind of someone who is quite skeptical of it to start, and so if you are hearing this, like and I imagine if you're hearing this, you're also a lot of you are identifying with it, and you're
Yeah.
like, "Oh, that's what this is, I just haven't known what to do with it or what it is."
Yeah. Yeah, and then if you continue to open to the access to energy, my husband can be breathing in the other room, intentionally or, just intentionally taking a breath, and I feel it in my pussy in the other room.
So crazy.
And yeah, and so and now, that now that he knows that that's the case, he'll do it, he'll just do things in the other room just to drive me crazy. So he knows I'm on a business meeting and I'm starting to, I mean, it's like as if I had a yoni egg in, but it's
Mhm,
all energetic.
mhm.
Or he can, say something or look at me in a particular way or even just make a sound and I'll start writhing.
So good.
So, yeah, and what's fun is the energetic can be used as foreplay, or it can be used as the entire sexual experience or anything in between, but it gives you a pathway in, and I think that not denying it, like welcoming it in, so when your body does quiver or shiver, it's not like, "Oops, sorry, something wrong," there's nothing wrong. It's actually your body, your energy body responding.
Mhm.
When you actually let that be a part of it, then you're opening to the possibility of energetic sex being a spice in your sex life, or it can be your entire sex life, and you can, or again, anywhere in between.
Mm,
There is something I wanna say, which is, those who are very energetically sensitive, you don't have to merge with your partner's, energetic field or energy body in order to have energetic sex. So you can still have energetic sovereignty. I'm talking specifically to people who will understand this, just so a little advanced, but you can meet each other at the edges of your energetic fields and still have just a deep penetrative ecstatic experience. And it's like your energy field molds and moves and shapes and shifts to meet the sexual moment, and so it's still whole and complete and in its wholeness, but it doesn't have to be ruptured in any way. You don't have to, blend in with their energy in order to have a really ecstatic experience. And if you want to learn more about that, I'm happy to work with you specifically. But this is just to say, like, there is so much capacity for wholeness, and the same thing translates to emotional merging, codependency, some of these other things that show up just relationally, uh, that, like, you don't it's just in the same way that you don't have to be codependent or to have a super hot sex life, you don't have to be energetically codependent.
Mm. So then, do you consider merging energetically to be unhealthy?
Not necessarily. I think it's a good I'm glad you brought that in. What I find is that when I do that, I feel drained
Mm,
because part of my energy is now in their energy and vice versa.
mm,
So I'm not in my wholeness. But some people really find merging to be the most effective way, and it's not draining at all for them.
mm,
So I think there just like how there's kind of light and shadow sides with anything, there can be light and shadow sides to how you work with energy. But I personally have found that merging has been more depleting than serving, but I can still experience energetic penetration, like all the things that I loved that still, you know, help me to stay whole and energized.
mhm. You're exchanging sexually, you're just not merging.
Yes.
You're coming into union or
Mhm.
interesting. It's interesting for me to talk about because that's something I'm like, I don't know. I have a sense I'm probably a merger, which is why I can't see it quite as clearly.
Mhm.
Because I'm like, oh, I can't. mm, What does it mean? And I'm still early in it, and so I don't know if this is going too down a tangent. But is there a way that you quickly identify if you're merging with someone or not?
Again, some common things that can happen. Well, it can feel very yummy. Like it can feel almost like gooey yummy. You eh, your eyes might glaze over. You might get like almost like a common to a sub state, which is or subspace, which is why I don't want to judge it because it's not, some of these qualities happen just with the chemicals moving in general,
Mhm.
but it can get fuzzier because your energy isn't as clear.
Yeah.
You're melded, so
Mm,
things just get fuzzier.
mhm,
But also, yeah, you can feel like if you continually feel depleted after intimacy, this even happens sometimes to me with hugs. I'll hug people and they'll try to merge with my energy, and it's like there's almost like a falling into me energetically.
mm.
Uh, I'm very sensitive to it, so I have like a bleh response to it. So yeah, so almost a falling in sensation or feels blendy. This
Mhm,
is me putting
mm.
words to an energetic
Yeah.
experience.
Yeah. We can kinda leave it at that because again, I imagine it's similar to it's like, okay, there's and I have an idea of it, and the way at least I'm currently relating to it is I don't find myself feeling depleted or drained, so there's not a problem with how
Yep.
I'm currently working with energy in my intimate life, and so it's more of a geek out thing. Yeah, this is cool. I like this conversation. Like, trying to put words on it. So, when you and your partner, husband, Dom, it's not that, like, you guys don't sit down every time into, like, a structured, "This is how we have, like, the energetic version of P and V." It's not like that, right? It's, like, way more emergent and
Yes.
yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, that structured sitting down in front of each other that you'll learn in a polarity workout is so valuable to understand how the mechanics of it works
Mhm,
and how to access it. So I think it's awesome. But, just like how we don't sit down and negotiate a scene and this step by step by step by step anymore, it's more emergent.
Yeah.
But that structure is can be very valuable for someone who needs that to, for a containment of the scene. And then same thing for staying connected to the dynamics of the polarity. But yeah, no, for us it is more emergent. I think ever since that first time we just had access to it.
Mhm.
Uh, but yeah, like I sat down at brunch with him a year after we had had that experience of energetic ecstasy, and no, it was more it was 3 years later, let me get honest here. It was 3 years later or 2.5, and we sat at brunch together, and simply him gazing into my eyes, breathing, and energetically penetrating me. I was sitting across from him at brunch, and I was just, like, shaking, and that was us at brunch 2.5 years later. So, we definitely had access to it, and it was ecstatic shaking. It wasn't fear or, like, a trauma response, it was ecstasy. Like, pretty much orgasmic.
Eh, eh, eh. So great.
Yeah,
Was that the first time you had like been in person since that
since
practice?
that practice, yeah.
Wow.
We'd both had other relationships in the meantime, an entire pandemic, because it was
Okay.
February 2020 that we met, and then it was
Wow.
November 2023 or d yeah, so,
Yeah.
yeah, a lot of lifing,
Hmm.
and then we were able to reconnect in that because both of us have so much access to that energetic exchange.
Yeah.
And we love it, we're so open to it. And he also practices yoga and breath work and a lot of he's a long time yoga practitioner, so he has access to energy that he's cultivated
Hmm.
in his practice, and so have I.
Yeah. Well, that's a perfect kind of where we'll start to maybe wrap this up. And if there's more to say, I could see future continued discussions. This has been one of my favorite. Where can people start with this? Like
Mhm.
single or coupled?
Yeah, so again, any here's one thing I'll say. A good yoga teacher brings these energetics in.
Mm,
But a lot of people who are just going in for the workout don't hear it.
mm,
So starting to open to it and hear it in spaces that you already are in, like a yoga practice, tai chi practice, qigong practice, these lineages that access and work with energy. And then also paying attention, like when you're in warrior two, what is happening with your energy?
mm,
And why the breath gives you a certain experience if you're breathing versus if you're not breathing. Like, actually just starting to pay attention in spaces that already have structure like this, or breathwork containers. I mean, there's a lot of spaces like this. So
mhm.
that's one way to do it on your own. Obviously we have containers and spaces where you can work with energy in a more nonlinear way, and exploring how to work with your own energy, so you can contact us, and a lot of our practices and spaces work energy. We absolutely bring it in the Temple of Yes. And then with a partner, any container that is working with, again, sexual polarity, masculine and feminine embodiment are terms that you can search. Our teacher, John Wineland, also has many, many other people who have come out of the teacher training there. Carrie and I both did the teacher training there. There are a lot of ways in John Wineland's in a lineage of David Data. Then there's a lot of other Tantra teachers out there that are really, really great. Tantra is another good search term.
Justin Patrick Pierce and London Winters do really
Yeah.
beautiful takes on this work as well.
Yeah, and they also studied with David Data. Yeah, there's Yeah, I mean, there's so many teachers.
Yeah. And hit us up because we know people in the space. And I
Yeah.
will say, as with any sexual expression, there is integrity involved, and
Mhm.
that includes energetic. So I wanted to weave this in like, if you have accidentally been giving those looks to people in the grocery store that
Mm.
are maybe being like received like someone like sliming on people, like just kind of check where the integrity is in how you are playing with this, because I've heard stories about, visualizing that you're doing something to the bartender across the way, and the story that has been told is like visualizing licking their ear, and that bartender actually reaches up and like pulls at their ear.
Yeah.
So, just because the genitals aren't involved per se, or there's not command per se, there still is integrity in playing in these realms and wielding this. And
Yeah.
the same applies to who you are learning it from. So if there is someone you're interested in, run it by us. We know a lot of really trustable people in this field and would love to either teach you in our containers or help you find a space to explore this more.
Yeah. And a way to just work with energetic sovereignty is to imagine that you're like zipping up a coat or putting on a rain jacket or like an energetic burqa, something like that. So you envision that you are putting on something, clothing yourself
Mm,
essentially
mm.
energetically. And even that using your sacred imagination to envision that will have that impact.
I love that because it's like, do you need to increase the sensitivity? Check out the yoga, the breath. Do you need to take a little more ownership of what's getting into your field? Work with a little more sovereignty. Very cool. And the thing that I'm trying to remember the quote, but I love that it all kind of starts with those who are looking for the magic see it.
Yeah.
And it kind of, to me, it feels like that at the end of the day. Who necessarily cares if there's the right words for it or the scientific knowledge in 50 years to show what it is? Like if you are enjoying it, your partner's enjoying it, you're having a sense of ecstasy or a felt sense of turned onness, aliveness. What does it matter if some of it is in the realm of the magic? I mean, shoot, it seems like we're obsessed with fantasy books and Harry Potter books and
Yep.
sci-fi books anyways, so it's like we grow up as kids hearing about magic. Why do we have to lose that as adults?
Yep. That's great.
Well, thank you. Thanks for sharing your knowledge and experience, and yeah, if something in this resonated, come find us. We'd love to see you.
Thanks for listening to Erotic Reclamation. If this episode did something for you,
Turned you on, made you think.
made you feel a little less alone, subscribe, leave a review,
Share it with someone who needs it, and then come back for more.
because you get to want more.